Hello all, myself Vedangi and I'm a legal intern at Lexis and Company. So guys, my another topic for today's discussion is the case analysis of Royal British Bank versus Turquoise. So let's begin. So the famous case of Royal British Bank versus Turquoise laid down that a person who is dealing with a company must look only at the Memorandum of Association and the Article of Association to know the extent of the authority and need not inquire into the regularity of the internal proceedings of the company. So prior to this judgment, there are several rules for protecting the person who is dealing with the company, and most of the rules were almost entirely common law rule. Now talking about the background of this case, so the Memorandum of Association of the company shall be lodged with the registrar of the companies, and this is available for the public inspection. Since people who are engaged in business with the company, they are free to inspect the document to see whether there is any limitation of powers or limitations on the business, and it created a problem. It deems outsiders to be aware of any limitations placed on the company's management. Therefore, it was later on found out that there was an irregularity within the company regarding to any decision. It regards outsiders dealing with the company to be aware of it. Now, the facts of this case are that basically they appointed Turquoise as the official manager to liquidate the insolvent Cameron's Coalbrook Steam, Coal and Swansea and London Railway Company. This company was incorporated under the Joint Stock Companies Act 1844, and the company had issued a bond of 2000 euros to the Royal British Bank, which secured the company's drawings on its current account. The bond was under the seal of the company, which was signed by 2 directors and 1 secretary. Also, the plaintiff, the Royal British Bank, it basically sued him for the non-payment, and the company claimed that under its registered deed of settlement, that is the Articles of Association, the directors had only the power to borrow what has been authorized by the company's resolution. And the defendants also pleaded that it had adopted no such resolution allowing the making of the bond, and that they gave any such bond without the authority and the consent of the shareholders of the company. So the company claimed that there was no resolution passed authorizing the issue of the bond, and therefore the company was not held liable. So mainly the issue that was involved in this case was whether the company is liable for the loan or not. So the judgment that came in this case was, Sir Jervis was of the opinion that the judgment of the Court of Queen's Bench should be upheld. He was inclined to believe that the question which was mainly raised both in this case and in the court does not necessarily arise and does not need to be decided. And his impression is that the resolution that was set out in the replication goes far enough to satisfy the requirements of the deed of the settlement. Also, according to him, the deed allows directors to borrow on the bond the sum or the sums of money which may be borrowed from time to time by a resolution that was passed at the general meeting of the company, and the replication of the resolution adopted at the general meeting authorizes the directors to borrow such sums on bonds for such period and at such interest rates as they may deem expedient in accordance with the Act of Settlement or the Act of the Parliament. But the resolution does not otherwise define the amount that needs to be borrowed. Also, he contended that if this is the case, the other question does not arise, and we do not need to decide, for it seems to us that the plea, whether we consider it to be a confession and a refusal, does not raise any objection to that advance as against the company. He further stated that we can now take for granted that dealings with these companies are not like dealings with other partnerships, and that the parties who are dealing with them are bound to read the statute and the act of the settlement, but they are not bound to do more than that. Also, the party here who is reading the act of the settlement would find not the prohibition of borrowing but the permission to do so under certain conditions. So in finding that the authority could be completed by a resolution, it would have the right to infer the fact of resolution authorizing what appears to have been legitimately done in the face of the document. So what was held in this case? So it was basically held that the company was entitled to sue on the bond as a requirement of resolution as a matter of the internal regulation and the proceedings of the company, and the bank could not know whether such resolution had in fact been passed, it was entitled to presume that the resolution had indeed been passed. So this rule was known as the Indo management rule. Now the concepts that were highlighted in this case was that according to Turquand, or also known as the Indo management rule, any outsider who enters into the contract with the company in good faith, he is entitled to assume that the internal requirements and the procedures have been complied with. Consequently, the company will be bound by the contract even if the internal requirements and procedures have not been complied with. Also, one cannot claim under the doctrine of Indo management that if the outsider is aware that the internal requirements have not been complied with, or if the circumstances under which the contract was concluded on the behalf of the company are meant to be suspicious. Also, it is sometimes possible for an outsider to determine whether an internal requirement has been complied with or not. If this can be ascertained from the public documents of the company, so the doctrine of disclosure and the doctrine of constructive notice shall apply instead of the doctrine of Indo management. So what we can conclude from the entire case is that if an officer of the company has exceeded his authority as given to him by the Articles of Association, there has been some non-compliance with an internal procedure, and the outsider may presume that the internal procedure of the company has been complied with. So guys, that's all about my discussion on this particular case. I hope you all liked my video. If you guys have any doubt with regard to this video or to the previous one, then you can comment in the comment section. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel Lex Click. We will meet in the next video. Till then, bye.